Happy New Year from Dylan Ward and myself, Luke Jordan, as we begin our 2025 set schedule of the Scholastic Sitdown. It is the first episode of the new year, and we are so happy to be alongside you. And we're happy to see hockey back into near full swing. We had a couple games last week. We're going to have a good amount this week. And Dylan, you have a good holiday?
I did. It's pretty hard to believe that it's 2025 already. We're in the second half of the 20s as of now, which is absolutely crazy to me. But I know you guys missed us back at home watching, but we're back to our weekly podcast episodes now that the season is back, and I guess Luke will probably be every week from here till the end of the season.
Absolutely. And today we will be going over a big list of things. We're talking about recapping the week, recapping the All-Star games. We're going to get to talk to Dan Wood, head coach of the Stevenson Patriots, which should be a fun interview because not only two of his players playing in the All-Star game, but he was also a part of the SHL bench in a big win for them. Then we'll look outside the SHL, look at our standings here as we start the new year, preview the week ahead that includes 12 games, and then the question of the week and trivia. So without further ado, let's just talk about the All-Star game real quick because we were both there. You were down in between the benches, me and Chris Dubiel up top, and overall fun experience. And I think we're going to hint at this with Dan Wood later, but it was not the score that you would expect after watching that game. It felt fairly even, but a 7 goal victory for the Scholastic League, 9-2, shockingly a bigger deficit than last year's 7-4 win when we thought things could have been a little bit closer this year.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And especially, you got to consider St. Ignatius and Fenwick's players do play for the CCHL side, so that sort of balances it out a little bit more. And Luke, it was a pretty not competitive game, but a close game because I thought the CCHL had a lot of good chances, but the SHL skaters were no match for the CCHL goaltending tandem. It was 39 to 39 shots, and the three goaltenders for the SHL stood on their head, and Michael Raderman, Brock Harrer, and Wyatt Schmidt. And like you said, Luke, 9-2 is the final score. It was 1-0 after the first period, but then just an absolute explosion by the SHL, combining for 8 goals in that second and third.
Absolutely. And I mentioned it on the broadcast. I said this is probably one of the best three-headed dragon in goalie, just a goalie room for the All-Star game that we could have ever seen. You're talking about three seniors that have made huge impacts on their teams. Wyatt Schmidt, Michael Raderman, Brock Hare, three goalies who are all going to sadly lose after this year. But boy, oh boy, did they have some great defense behind them, and they played great themselves. 2 days after the All-Star game, we kicked off our 2025 schedule of SHL play. We started things on Saturday, January 4th, where the Spartans were on the road to meet the St. Viator Lions. A very exciting opener that was highly anticipated. It was GBN up for a majority of the game, but it's actually St. Viator that comes out on top with a 3 goal third period as they down the Spartans there. Two other games to recap on the week, and we'll talk about them in a moment, but flashing through them real quick. Glenbrook South, 4 goals in the first period, 6 total goals in that first frame, and 12 total goals in the game as the Titans down the Friars 8-4. Glenbrook South grabs another win there. And then Fenwick would have to turn around in less than 24 hours and play the Loyola Academy Ramblers at home. And that one, a rough one for them. Loyola, a very balanced attack, 3 goals in the first, 4 goals in the second, and two in the third for a 9-2 victory over Fenwick. Out of these three games, Dylan, what sticks out to you?
Well, obviously, it's going to have to be that Glenbrook North St. Viator game. These are two teams that are at the top of the SHL standings. You're looking at number one in points percentage versus number three in points percentage. And like you said, Luke, GBN with the lead for most of the game. They were up 2-1 after the first period. They held that lead all the way until 4:08 left in the third period when Albert Przuara scored to tie the game up. And just about 2 minutes later, with 2:15 to go, it was Connor Sibitroth getting what would eventually be the game-winning goal. So that line of Sivitroth, Przuara, and I think LeBoy on that St. Viator team, very dominant all season long, and they help get the huge win. And this is not only does is this a big win for St. Viator as they look to keep on climbing those SHL standings, but they actually take the season series over Glenbrook North with this one. And Glenbrook North team who's only lost 4 games all season long, that's definitely something that you have to feel good about.
Absolutely. And you're wondering if New Trier is happy with that as well, because, you look at the points percentage, GB on pace to eventually top the Trevians. But after that loss, who knows if that's the case. And, how about Glenbrook South? You were there for that. 4 goals in the first period. How did that all unfold?
Well, Luke, I was actually not there for that. I was up in Green
Oh,
Bay at
you
the Bears
weren't?
game. No, I had our
Oh.
very own Anthony Pasquale filling in for me, but we were all hanging out in the basement of the Airbnb, and somehow I just flipped the game on and nobody turned it off. So I was actually able to watch that, sort of intermittently, but yeah, it just seemed like everything was going in for the Titans. I mean, you watch those goals back, nothing crazy, just average plays, innocent shots that just sort of squeak through. And like you said, it was a very high scoring game in total, but really in that first period, Titans were up 4-2. They were actually up 4-0, and Fenwick came back to make it 4-3. So everyone had to hold their breath a little bit, but it was eventually the Titans coming out on top.
And with that being said, now we're going to get a chance to talk to head coach of the Stevenson Patriots, Dan Wood. I bet you this is going to be a treat. Come listen to this interview with the Pats HC. And our special guest for episode number 15 is head coach of the Stevenson Patriots and the first representative from the Pats. It's Dan Wood. Dan, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, guys. Really looking forward to being on here.
Absolutely. You're talking about the all-star game between the SHL and CCHL. You guys went 9-2. Jimmy Brown, Brian Wojdelko made some big impacts in that game, and you also got to be a part of it. How was that experience overall?
Oh, I love anytime you can get beat in an all-star game, you get to see, to me, that my favorite part is you get to see the personalities of the other guys that you kind of play against. So you get to see, those guys like Reiterman on the bench just screaming his head off, having a blast. And for me, again, I was working with the defensemen, so getting to know the defensemen and seeing how they did, I thought that was awesome. And I was really happy with how Woj and Brownie played. They got to play with Hoffer, and the three of them, I felt like every time they were on the ice, they were getting an incredible scoring chance. They're making a ton of really great plays and really, really fun to watch, really fun to be a part of. I also got to coach with great coaches, Evan and Jimmy and PJ and Carmel. It was a ton of fun. It was a great event all around. Really thankful for the Wolves being able to put that on. So, and then we got a big win and just again showcasing the talent and depth that we have in the SHL. Because that CCHL team, they had a ton of guys that were great too, including some guys that we play a lot. So it was really, really impressive. It was really fun to be a part of, and really, really glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, the 9-2 final score probably didn't tell the full story of the game. It was a lot closer than that score tells you if you're actually watching the game or in your case coaching it. But one of your big three, your veteran players is Sean Yurkov, and he, of course, has made a name for himself in Illinois for scoring the Michigan goal. And I just want to ask a question specifically about this for a second. It seems like he's able to kind of do that at will, and even he's attempting it in a lot of games too. I mean, it's a very futuristic, play of hockey that we see more and more at every level. What do you think it is about him that gives him the confidence to pull that off?
It's not just the confidence to do it, but he practices it all the time. So the first time he did it was in an eighth grade skate. We had, for the incoming freshman, he pulled it off in a mini game that we were playing. I was like, well, that was impressive. I've never seen that before. But it was not on accident. From that practice, and he still does it sometimes to this day, he will stay after practice, and instead of picking the pucks up like a normal human being, he will pick it up and do it in Michigan and put them in the bag or the bucket every single puck. So he's doing it 100 times a game of practice. So that's what gives him the confidence to be able to do it. And then, I've seen him do it, and I know how difficult it is to defend. And it's an area of the ice where you're typically not a threat to score for most guys. So to have that threat to be able to do that, now everybody in our league knows about it, but he pulled off another one in the SHL showcase, where against some good teams there. So he's it's an incredible weapon that we can do. And then on top of that, it's something that he's probably known for, but it also opens up a lot of other things because now if guys are getting too aggressive down there, he's also really great at finding guys and the late trailer and just so skilled and strong offensively that he can beat you lots of different ways. So it's fun that he's got that in his bag, in that he can pull it off at any given moment. But it's not the whole part of his game, which has been really fun to see grow the last 2 years, 3 years really. He's been on the team.
You guys have 10 games left in your regular season. You're currently 3 points out of playoff contention to Lake Forest holding the last seed. Are there any specific parts of your game that you'd like to see your team improve on through this stretch and then go make a run in the SHL playoffs?
Love to be scoring more goals. I think everybody would like to be doing that. We've been probably more snake bit than any team that I've ever coached before, and it's we're getting good chances, and we're just either we're hitting the post or goalies are playing great, or we're missing the net. On our opportunities. I think a perfect example of that was our last game against York. It was the final ended up being 3-0, but we could have scored 6 goals and we got none. So it was a combination of their goalie playing incredible and and us really just having some tough luck. So I'm hoping with the break that you guys come back a little bit healthier too. You're in the middle of that season, you're in the middle of that stretch. Everybody's got bumps and bruises and some more than other, but with we're getting Will Delco back being healthy. We're getting Brownie coming back off of an injury, and Yurkov has been battling nagging injuries. Now these guys have all been playing, but they haven't been playing at 100%. So hopefully we're getting everybody back relatively healthy, so we can go and get there, and we can finish a little bit more. That's probably been the biggest thing we're working on, and trying to just get good habits. If they're not coming in the easy way, you got to score some more ugly goals and more dirty goals. So that's been a lot of what we've been talking about lately, is just getting into those hard areas. It's easy to work hard, but not everybody wants to do it. So getting into those areas and trying to finish on those plays more often as we get closer. And those are going to be the goals that come February, March, it becomes so hard to score. Everybody's in their team structure. Their defense is going to be more rigid and tight and harder to break. So those hard goals are going to be the ones that are going to be the differences in coming, February and March.
You talk about, the tough stretch coming up. This Sunday you play the league leaders, New Trier Green, but it's a team you've beaten already once this season. Obviously, whenever you get a win over that big powerhouse in this state, it's always one that you remember. I guess it was a little while ago at this point, but what are you looking to carry over from that win and what your team did to your next meeting against this team on Sunday?
Well, with New Trier, they have so much skill up and down the lineup. Their fourth line is as good as most people's first, So everybody that's going on the ice has got to be competing hard, and winning battles. That's one thing. The other thing is they're fast and they're super, super skilled. So you got to take away their time and space, force them to get the puck off of their stick. If they're dumping the puck in, or you just can't give them time and space, because you give them time and space, then they're going to be able to pick you apart. And they did that to us in the very first game that we met in the preseason, where they drubbed us by 11. So they have that ability to be that quick straight offense. And even when we had the big lead on them in our victory, we never felt complacent, never felt safe. So they got that quick straight. So being able to try and slow them down in any way that you can. Your goalie has to play fantastic. You have to play great team defense. You got to be blocking shots, because you're not going to win a run and gun game against them. No one in the state really can. But, if you're going to, any single game, anybody can be beaten. And that's been proven this year. You got in our league is probably the most balanced it's ever been. So you got guys, if you can go out there, you can compete, get a couple of those dirty goals, play really good defense. You can compete with anybody out there.
This is a fun nugget that not many people know about you, at least that I know of. So you played 4 years of hockey at Stevenson. That's clear cut. But how about at the same time, we talked about this in person, you were a nationally ranked weightlifter. What in that translated to your game of hockey that you really trained on?
So the biggest thing with that, so I did Olympic weightlifting, which is different from like powerlifting, and it's not bench pressing. Olympic weightlifting is going to be snatches and clean and jerks. So that's where you take the bar from the ground and you throw it up over your head in a couple different ways. The number one thing that that translates to is explosiveness. So you get faster just by doing that. You get a lot better balance because you have to, if you're throwing 300 pounds up over your head, you have to have good balance and you build out your core. So that
Oh
will
yeah.
help guys that are coming to hit you. It helps with your explosiveness and hitting. So I'm not exactly a big guy, but I was able to hit guys that were way bigger than me and knock them down. But the most important out of any one of those things are injury prevention. I played 4 years at the high school level. Started at 14, played to 18. I missed 8 total games in those 4 years, and
Wow.
I dislocated joints in my chest, and I sprained my ankle as well. And those were in the same 2 week time frame. So I it was a big thing. That was why I got into it. So when I was 10, I was playing AAA and I was 100 pounds and the kid I was going against was 220 pounds. So I went to go and naturally, being the dumb hockey guy that I am, I tried to go and hit him and knock him down and I ended up breaking my back. So I really got injured there. So that's how, recovering from that, we wanted to figure out a way, how do we get stronger? And so we were looking at different strength coaches that were just in my area. And we happened to be lucky enough to find Mike Gattone and Roger Nielsen. So Mike Gattone was this year, he was in the Olympics as one of the head Olympic coaches for the women's team there and won a gold medal with some of the lifters that were there, and Roger Nielsen was in the 2008 Beijing Olympics, and they just happened to be in Buffalo Grove at the time. That's how I got into it. It was an incredible time. I'm really, really thankful for them, and it's something that I still try to teach our players. That is the best thing that you can do for really any athlete is doing those kinds of moves. It does a full body workout. It really, especially with hockey players, it builds out your core, your shoulders, your everything that you need to be successful in hockey. It gets those all better in really just one movement. So it's something that I was really, really passionate about. And fortunately for me, like when my hockey season ended, then it became weightlifting season. I was just training essentially for the next year, but I've always had that goal to be in mind of what I could do. So yeah, it was a really, really fun time. Kind of happened to fall into it just because I got hurt and they happened to be nearby. Kind of lucked into it, but it was really fun seeing my old coach on TV at the Olympics.
Yeah, that's really cool. I actually did not know that. So that's a really cool connection you got there, Luke. This is
That's
going to be the
awesome.
last question on my behalf, Dan. A lot of people know that most of the teams in the SHL are club teams, meaning they're not technically affiliated with the school while they do use their name and logo or whatever. But Stevenson is the lone SHL team that is a school sport. And a lot of people have heard that, but a lot of people don't know exactly what that means. So if you could just break down kind of what the difference is and how it relates to how you operate.
Yeah, so a bunch of years ago, my dad was actually a pretty integral part of that with Stevenson getting them back in and getting the school just to get some backing and being a part of the actual process. So with Stevenson, we have a bunch of different masters that we have to follow, right? So you have A high, which everybody has to follow, but we also have IHSA rules. We have an athletic director, and we come in as like an emerging sport under IHSA. So we have a couple extra rules there. You'll see that at Stevenson, if there's certain games that are outside a certain mile radius, we have to take a bus to there. The biggest thing though is that we get a lot of backing and support from the school. So I'm actually hired on by the school. Um, so they help with that part. The players, they all get letters and they get um, you know their actual part of the school there. We get a lot of support and funding. It's been an incredible relationship with our athletic department that we've had in Trish Bethhauser. She's incredible. So being able to get that, and there's been a lot of things that they've just been growing and they continue to ask like, hey, what can we do to support? And we wouldn't be able to do as much as we do without the support of the school, and trying to be able to compete with some of the big schools and the historically great teams that are in our league. We need all the backing and the help that we can get. So it's a unique situation that we have that you know I've been really thankful for, and my dad was an integral part of doing that, and it's been kind of fortunately it's been growing in how much they're helping us and we're encouraging other schools to try and be a part of it. It's a big hurdle because it is a massive financial commitment from the school that they currently don't have to do. And it's for them to do that. It's really overall, you get, in my opinion, you get a better product out of it. You get more for the players. They get access to more things that, either if you want to do it, you have to pay more or you'd have to go, there'd just be things are just wouldn't be available there. So it's one of the things that when my dad did it, he worked really hard to make that relationship happen. When my brother took over the program, he said that's the number one thing that he is going to keep, and that was really put to the test during the COVID year because everybody wanted to be playing and we had to fall under the IHSA rule guidelines, which so we weren't able to have. We only had 20 contact days when other teams were practicing and trying to practice more, and that was really putting a big strain on everything. And that was the one thing that we said we would not bend or break on is that we are staying committed to the school. The school has helped us out so much, and overall with that year, maybe we didn't have that great year, that COVID year, which was a weird year, and it was. But the following year, we were rewarded about the best way that you could. We won the state championship. So, I'm a big believer things happen for a reason. I know that it was important for my dad to go there. It's important for my brother, and it's really important for me. And I've seen the impact that it can have on families and players. So it's something that I'm incredibly proud of. That we are had that do have that great relationship and how incredible Trish has been and I love when we can always go in there and check in there and I can walk into the school and I actually know everybody that's there. So it's really fun.
Wow, coach, it feels like I just learned all about Stevenson hockey in a span of 15 minutes. That some great answers from you. We just learned a lot, Dylan, and it's been an honor to have you on this episode, Coach Wood. Thank you once again for joining us today.
Thank you guys. It was a ton of fun. Really love what you guys are doing and how you're growing the awareness for the league and it's just an awesome thing. So thank you guys.
Good luck with the rest of your season, coach.
Thank you.
Big thanks to Dan Wood for joining us. That was a very fun interview. As I mentioned, we just learned so much information about the school, about his experience with weightlifting and playing hockey at the same time. I mean, that's got to be one of my favorite interviews yet, Dylan.
Yeah, that was a good one. Definitely ranks up there. And yeah, it was definitely interesting to hear sort of the breakdown of exactly how Stevenson is a school sport. Because again, like I said in the interview, you hear that, but not a lot of people know what that means. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
And now, with that being said, we're going to take a look at outside the Scholastic Hockey League, three leagues that we like to highlight, of course, the North Central, CCHL, and IHSHL West. So starting off in the North Central, it's New Trier Blue that is still in front of the pack. The race is getting tighter, though. The Trevians with 31 points on the season and 19 games played. Chicago North on their tail. They're a win away from tying them. And then Evanston in third, 1 point behind Chicago North. BGHW in fourth, 1 point behind Evanston. And BGHW is also tied with Deerfield. So things are getting real tight up north. In the CCHL, although the CCHL lost the All-Star game, Bennett has not played any games during this time period, still leaving them as the only undefeated team in the Chicago Catholic League. 14-0-0, 26 power play goals in 14 games. St.
That's
Ignatius is
absurd.
behind them. Brother Rice, 10-2, third. Notre Dame, fourth. Providence Catholic, fifth. In the West, Maine is still at the top, 19-3 over 22 games. Plainfield is behind them with the 17-6 record. Warriors in third, Glenbard in fourth, and OPRF making their way back up at fifth. One other thing to note back in the CCHL, the Chicago Blackhawks high school rivalry series has not won but two games this week, and one of them is occurring in the CCHL. It is going to be a tight one between St. Rita and Mount Carmel. That game is Thursday night, and you can catch that on YouTube as well as we'll talk about the rivalry series game in the SHL just a little bit later. So that'll do it for the outside the SHL look. With that being said, it is time to look at the standings of the SHL. A very fresh start to 2025, only a couple of games played, and the race is getting tight and time is running out. So let's take a look at it as of today, Tuesday, January 20 or January 7th, 2025. And it was funny because before I made that hiccup, I was about to say December. I keep forgetting it is literally the new year. It's like when
Yeah.
you keep forgetting you just turned a certain age, after your birthday,
Yep.
but
Yep. Or when you write down the date and you just your muscle memory goes 24. It takes a couple
yeah,
weeks into the new year for that one.
there's there's still time periods where I still think I'm 18 years old, but
Yeah.
I'm
You know,
I'm about 4 months 19, so
it's funny. My dad always says when you start automatically writing 2025 as the date, that right there is the exact moment you can't say Happy New Year anymore. That's when
yeah.
that expires.
And then the next day it turns over and it's 2026, but
Yep. Yeah, that year sounds way too futuristic to be a year away.
seriously. All right, well, here's the top 11 arguably in the state put into one hockey league. Here we go. We're going to zip through this and then we're going to break it down. So New Trier is at number one. They have tallied a point in 5 straight games, as you see there. But how about St. Viator at second, winning 5 straight games? They are now 16-5-1. They are tied for New Trier in points, but also you have to note the Trevians have a game on advantage with them. St. Ignatius is at number three with a 14-7-2 record. Loyola actually lost 2 of their last 5, shockingly, for 6 of the regulation losses on the year, 13-6-3 at number 4. And then it is North South consisting of 5-6. GBN still playing catch up in their amount of games, though they have still one of the best point percentages in the SHL, but it's actually now second after that regulation loss to St. Viator earlier last week. So as of right now, if all these teams were on pace to perform as their points percentage, New Trier would actually have the 1 seed for yet another year. Then it's York holding on to that 7th spot. Lake Forest just there with an 8th spot, and they've actually tallied points in 3 of their last 5 games, but 2 of them being overtime losses. Carmel is just outside right now, but they also have a 2 game advantage on the Scouts, and they're 1 point behind at number 9. Stevenson, who we just talked to, Coach Dan Wood, he said that his team needs to start getting pucks in the nets. They've had a lot of chances. We'll see if that turns around for them in the last 10 games of the season, as they are currently at number 10. At number 11, it is Fenwick, 6-19-0, having tallied a win recently, but still at the bottom of the league. So, Dylan, what sticks out?
Well, Luke, there's a couple things that stick out. I'll go from top to bottom. First of all, the tie between New Trier and St. Viator. You mentioned the game in hand, the points percentage, but at the end of the day, when you're looking at the table, it is points, and this is going to be a very interesting race to close out the season. Both these teams are red hot. St. Viator, at least 5 wins in a row. I might have to check and see how many they're at. But wins in their last 5. New Trier points in their last 5. Win-win, overtime loss, win-win. And another thing to keep in mind, Luke, is that St. Viator has the tiebreaker over New Trier if they're a two-way tie because they beat them in the season series this year, 2-1. So
Yeah.
that's going to be really interesting. That's my first nugget. And then, like you said, North and South right next to each other in the standings. You mentioned GBS, 21 games played, GBN, 17 games played. But GBN only ahead of GBS by 1 point as it stands. This is obviously a big rivalry. These two teams are 1-1 against each other in this regular season with a big rubber match on January 26th in Northbrook. And, you talk about Glenbrook North, they, while they have 2 periods played against New Trier, they still need to log all 3 meetings versus New Trier in terms of results. And it's going to be interesting to see how that middle of the table shapes out. And the last big thing for me is obviously that playoff line, which Lake Forest currently sits in that 8 slot, as you mentioned, with 17 points, but losing 4 games in a row. And Carmel right behind them with only behind by 1 point with 16 points. eh, You know, it's a free for all down in the bottom of the SHL standings. And Stevenson only 2 points behind Carmel. Can't count out Fenwick either. I mean, they have the most games played. They've only got 5 games left in their season, but if they can find some magic, you never know. And, we're going to have our week preview here shortly, Luke, but there's a big, big game on Sunday between those two teams I just mentioned, Lake Forest and Carmel. And they're going to be, that game could easily be the difference once every team's got their 30.
Absolutely, and that will be a high school rivalry series game as well. That's going to be a lot of fun. So let's jump ahead and figure out this week's preview. We got 12 games ahead of us this week, seven of them on the weekend. Let's hop into today. You'll be seeing this episode today. This is probably going to be uploaded just a couple of hours before the first game of the Scholastic Sit-Down week, per se, since we're recording and uploading on a Tuesday. Lake Forest is on the road at Glenbrook North. This is a late one at Northbrook, 9:10 p.m. as the Spartans look to continue their race to first place. On Thursday, we have two games. Loyola is on the road at Stevenson at Twin Rinks, 5:45 p.m. puck drop, followed by 7:20 p.m. at Glacier, not too far from Twin Rinks, is Carmel hosting Fenwick. On Friday, another two-game slate. Glenbrook South and York meet again another time this season, while GBN and St. Ignatius, that should be a popcorn-packed matchup, 8:40 down in Chicago at Fifth Third Arena. Saturday, three games. Lake Forest GBS at 6:30, Loyola GBN at 7. Another great marquee matchup, not officially Marquee Sports Network, but just using the term as marquee because that should be a good one. And then Carmel, who has beaten New Trier this year, is taking on the Trevians on the road at 7:20 on Saturday night. Four games, our most packed day of the week is on Sunday. Probably some upset players knowing that they'll be missing part NFL Sunday, but hockey's better anyway. 5:30, Stevenson, New Trier as these two meet once again. Then, after that, it is Carmel and Lake Forest, our big game of the week, SHL game of the week, and a part of the high school rivalry series as well. And we're going to talk about how important that is, just considering the playoff seedings. But still two more after that as well. They're both at 6 p.m. It's Fenwick and Loyola, and then Glenbrook South down in Chicago as St. Ignatius hosts their second home game of the weekend. All right, Dylan, before we give our own personal games of the week, got to hit you with the classic what sticks out question.
Well, I think tonight's going to be an interesting game. Lake Forest and GBN matched up very well the first time they played. They still got two more games to settle in this regular season, and I'm interested to see how Glenbrook North responds to the loss. Especially like you said, and like we said in the game that they had the lead for most of it. That's gonna be really interesting. As for Thursday, you talk about Carmel at home against the Fenwick Friars. Carmel is desperate for points in the standings, and you can't count any team out. But when you're playing a team that's below you, when you're already kind of towards the bottom of the table, it's a really good opportunity to get some points on the board. And then obviously on Sunday, we were kind of waiting until this part of the show to, make this not reveal, but just, talk about it. This is going to be our first SHL outdoor game since 2018, as the Lake Forest Scouts will host the Carmel Corsairs at Winter Club of Lake Forest. That will be the Blackhawks rivalry series, as you mentioned, Winter Classic. You got to think both teams are going to be wearing their alternate jerseys. It's going to be a really, really good night. And they do have ice at Alumni Memorial Fieldhouse at the same time, just in case any kind of weather problems happen. But all signs are pointing to that outdoor game being a go, and we're gonna have that for you on our YouTube page. And Luke, that's just gonna be one heck of a spectacle to see some outdoor SHL hockey,
Oh, seriously, and we
especially in a
talk about
game that meaningful too.
exactly. I mean, I was just about to highlight how meaningful this game is. These two teams are so neck and neck. Now, Lake Forest, we've talked about it all season. It's been a narrative that they play really good at home. But this game isn't technically at Alumni Memorial Fieldhouse, so we'll see if that plays any impact. It's almost in a weird way, even though it is technically Lake Forest being a host, you kind of think of it as a neutral site game. You're technically away from home, and you still know a lot of Carmel fans are going to travel for this. It's not going to be a sea
Oh,
of
right.
blue. And both these teams are so dead even on the season. Just Lake Forest has two more losses overall, but they have the same amount of wins. They both have 7 wins on the year. So one of them is going to find an important number 8 or number 9, considering how they play earlier in the week as well. So I'm very excited for that.
Well, I'll tell you what, Luke, Steve Sarauer and his coaching staff are always sporting the nice puffy jackets with the fur hood. That's going to do them well on Sunday night. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely will. I'll be needing one of those. I actually got
Matter
a
of
heated
fact,
vest for Christmas, so that's a blessing.
I'm just taking a peek here at the forecast. Looks like we're in for a 28-degree puck drop. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be a little cold.
No precipitation though?
Doesn't look like it.
Well, that would be pretty ideal though. Keeps the ice in good condition. We'll see what happens there. And now we're going to look at our question of the week and trivia question.